Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Rundown. I will be your host today, Craig DeLuz, coming at you from the West Coast, the left coast, behind the Iron Curtain, otherwise known as the Sierras. And today, well, today's Taco Tuesday.
It's raining tacos from out of the sky. Tacos, no need to ask why. Just open your mouth and close your eyes. It's raining tacos. It's raining tacos out in the street. Tacos, all you can eat. Lettuce and shells, cheese and meat. It's raining tacos. Yum, 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 yum. It's like a dream. Yum, 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 yum. Bring your sour cream.
Well, that's right, folks. Today is Taco Tuesday, where we celebrate the diversity of American cuisine. Not just the diversity, but the ingenuity of American cuisine. And there's nothing more quintessential than that, than the taco, right? In other words, an example of something that we have came from another place, came here to the United States, became a part of the United States, and we've made it uniquely ours. Anyway, that's what we're celebrating. That's why we celebrate Taco Tuesday. Anyway, very much appreciate each and every one of you tuning in. Unfortunately, Mike is not going to be able to make it today. He's out once again earning those dollar bills, y'all. And we have no problem with people out there earning their money. So shout out to Mike. Hope you're listening, bruh. Anyway, let's go ahead, and we got a lot of stuff to talk about on today's program. So let's go ahead and start it off the way we usually do, with a quick shout out to our sponsors. We're going to start with the folks over at Hitman Industries. They make rifle and pistol caliber barrels that are available for you to purchase at any length. All you have to do is go to hitmanindustries.net. In fact, if you've purchased an AR in the last few years, there's a good chance you already have one of their barrels. So why not get another one? So the next time, whether you're looking to either rebarrel your current rifle or, do a brand new build, start your experience with hitmanindustries.net. Then we've got the California Republican Assembly, working to help elect conservatives at all levels of government, from school board all the way up to President of the United States. Ronald Reagan once referred to CRA as the conscience of the Republican Party. You need to find out why. All you have to do is visit their website at cragop.org. That's cragop.org. If you want to be a part of California's future today, you got to join CRA. And then there's the best in concealed carry tactical holsters available on the market. You will find them at hawgholsters.com. That's HAWG holsters.com. I know, funny spelling, right? Well, it stands for Helping Americans Wear Guns. In fact, they want to help you get a gun so much or carry a gun so much, they're going to make it easy for you. They're going to give you a discount. All you have to do is use the discount code THERUNDOWN. All caps, no spaces, one word, just like it is right up there, and you're going to get your Hawg holster on discount today. And then finally, if you're looking to get some new gear, and trust me, we all need new gear, whether you're a Boy Scout, whether you're an EMT, maybe you're a rock climber, maybe you're in law enforcement, or maybe you just like going out and shooting guns. Whatever it is, trust me, you can find all things tactical except the gun at uscombatgear.com. They have a huge selection, they have competitive pricing, and they specialize in group sales. Go to their website today, check them out. You will not be disappointed in what you find there and how inexpensive you're going to find it for. So visit them today, uscombatgear.com, the place where you can find all things tactical except the gun. Also, want to encourage you, if you are into the Second Amendment, if you are into 2A news and you're tired of having to hunt all over the place in order to find that news, you need to become a member of or subscribe to the 2A newsletter. It's put together by 2A News, one of the folks who helped produce this very program. Every day, every weekday, in your mailbox, you will get Second Amendment news from across the country. You will get it from blog posts. You will get it from 2A experts. You'll even get stories from the mainstream media that talk about the Second Amendment. You'll get vlogs. You'll get blogs. You will get it all right there. You'll even get product reviews. You'll get whatever deals are available on the internet when it comes to purchasing firearms or firearm accessories. Trust me, folks, it is all there, all of it. But you need to check it out today. You need to subscribe today over at 2anews.us. Once again, that is 2anews.us. Finally, I want to let you know and remind you, if you're watching this program during the 3 o'clock hour on the West Coast, or during the 6 o'clock hour on the East Coast, you are watching us live. And if you're watching us live, that means we're also taking your comments. It means we would love to hear what you have to say. Whether you agree with me or not, we'd very much appreciate hearing from you. In fact, it's probably better if you disagree with me, because then I get the opportunity to mock you.
Oh wow, is that a mockingbird?
Man, is that a mockingbird? Is that a mockingbird?
As Mike would say, we will mock you. All right, before we get into today's program, let me check and see if we have anybody who's already chimed in, anybody in the chats. Nobody in the chitty chats has commented yet. So, oh well, but we're going to have a good old time. We're going to have a good conversation nonetheless. I see we do have some folks who are liking the program over at Facebook. Very much appreciate you tuning in. Please make sure that you like and share. Like us and share the program with your friends. Let them know that this is going on, that the conversation is taking place right now. All right, let them know. Okay, let's go ahead and get into today's news. Now, this was something that I have to admit, this is a story that broke today. At first, none of the mainstream media was really reporting on it. None of them were talking about it. It wasn't being reported very widely. But it turns out that, there was a bit of a plot against the UFC 250 event, where folks were basically looking to attack. Now, this is, by the way, this is no small thing. This is no small deal. This is no just a couple of people on some Facebook group. This was a serious, actual plot, and if it had not been for one of the individuals, someone close to one of the individuals actually turning them in, Lord knows what would have happened. And this is the story over at MSNBC, over at NBC, or is it? No, it's NBC now. This is kind of their story on what exactly this was all about.
We begin with breaking news involving an alleged plot to attack the UFC event hosted by the White House over the weekend. The FBI announcing today an Ohio man, you see him here, now in custody and facing federal charges. He's been identified as 19-year-old Tyson Proper. Now, according to the criminal complaint here, Proper's mother called police, citing concerns over his recent conduct, including large purchases of firearms and ammunition, and his communication with people online who she says claim to be ex-military and Christian-based. More than 4,000 people attended Sunday night's event on the South Lawn. That includes, of course, the president, the vice president, and active military members. NBC News national law enforcement and intelligence correspondent Tom Winter joining us now with more. Tom, according to the FBI, Proper, other individuals plan to fly drones carrying explosives. We mentioned the firearms that were found here. What are we learning about this plot allegedly to attack this UFC event?
Yeah, so Sam, it was 9:18 last Wednesday night when local police received a call about a disturbance allegedly at the home of Proper. And according to court documents, within 20 minutes, they had uncovered quite a trove of firearms, ballistic plate carriers. That's to thwart bullets, part of a bulletproof vest. They found all sorts of ammunition and rifles. And as they started to talk to Proper, apparently during the course of a voluntary interview and searched his phone, they uncovered a plot involving potentially as many as 19 individuals working in smaller groups, 4 to 5 individuals. This was all being coordinated over Signal, and they started chatting in March of 2026 via TikTok. They call themselves the Vanguard of the Old. Basically, to boil down their alleged ideology, it's anti-government, it's anti-Israel. They had problems with the handling of the Epstein files. They had issues with data centers and their water usage. They're kind of what we would describe as accelerationists, and they were apparently behind quite a significant plot.
Do we know how many of the individuals you just described are actually in custody right now? This is an ongoing effort. And also, Tom, what more are we learning about his mother, Proper's mother, contacting the FBI and alerting them of what she was seeing?
Yes, I mean, she had some very significant concerns about him. They also highlighted some of his statements in recent months about making sympathetic comments about Adolf Hitler, posting anti-Semitic comments on Facebook. Basically, she just found that his behavior was quite worrying, and he'd used $3,000 of his graduation money to purchase all of these guns and ammunition. As far as the plot, we don't know how many individuals are currently in custody. The Secret Service alluded to at a press conference this morning that they didn't leak this because of concerns about the investigation and the case. And so that raises questions about why the FBI director put the information out this morning. But yes, this is very much an ongoing investigation and case, and we'll be following it closely, Sam.
It is chilling to think what would happen if she had not spoken up. and obviously a lot more details to report.
Okay, so this was obviously done before this particular piece came out, but according to the FBI, they've arrested 5 people specifically who are involved. Once again, this potential attack included explosive-laden drones. It would have included firearms. Down here it says 5 individuals were arrested by the FBI in connection with the would-be attack and were armed with thousands of rounds of ammunition, AR-15 rifles, tactical gear, radios, and laser pointers. They had detailed plans of what kind of attack they wanted to carry out, where they wanted to do it, and when they wanted to do it, and how they were going to get it done. The investigation into the plot has been a multi-agency response from federal, state, and local law enforcement, with the U.S. Secret Service say they are leading. Now, folks, here's the thing, and I wanted to make sure that I pointed this out, and I know that we talk a lot about quote-unquote left-wing violence here, or the threat of left-wing violence here on this program. But this is not left-wing violence. These were not individuals who are normally tied to left-wing violence. These are folks who are what we call the horseshoe right, right? These are people on the right who have gotten into the grievance culture, but only from the other side, right? They literally are becoming the racists that the folks, that the grievance party on the left is warning everybody about. Now, these are folks, I'm not saying that they never existed, but these are folks who are now, they have been emboldened, right? These are people who now are like, well, you know what, if you're going to call us this, we're all going to join together and we're going to do what it is that we're going to do. These are the folks who are following the Candace Owenses. They're the ones that are following the Tucker Carlsons. They're the ones who are pushing the anti-Semitic tropes that are out there. And by the way, a lot of these folks were part of the I'm not saying that everybody who wanted to see the Epstein files, who were on the right out there, I'm not saying that all of them were part of this group, but there was definitely a segment of folks out there who were part of the QAnon group that honestly believe that that there are leaders in this, that leaders in this country are, for example, are raping babies and eating their bodies. Right? That's the sort of thing that some of these folks actually believe. In fact, the lead individual that was mentioned here, that was one of the things that he said was one of the reasons why he wanted to do this, why they were part of this. And I say that to say this. We really need to, and once again, whether it's on the right or whether it's on the horseshoe right or just on the regular right or even on the left, we got to get a hold of some of this rhetoric and some of the exaggerations and hyperbole that have been invoked in our communication. Because this right here is an example of the sort of extremism that the right is capable of when it comes to that sort of violence, when it comes to political violence. Now, the left, we've seen the actual violence. In this particular case, they were able to catch this person. And I'll be honest with you, I'm saying the only reason they caught him, in this particular case, the primary reason they caught them was because, this individual's mother basically said something. If she had not said something, what are the chances that this would have actually happened? I don't know, but I'm going to guess something could have happened. Or at the very least, an attempt could have been made. Not saying it would have been made, not saying they would have been successful, but it's a little hard to argue. I mean, once again, these folks are not the left. Now, some of the stuff that's come out, like I said, like, for example, one of the things that they fed into was that, once again, this guy said that he believed this because, well, that information was in the Epstein files. Well, one of the things that we need to know about the Epstein files is that not everything in there, not everything that was eventually released has been verified or substantiated or is believed to even be true. In fact, they just took everything from anybody that had sent out because that's what people wanted, right? That's what the left was pushing for. That's what the horseshoe right was pushing for. When you hear someone say that Donald Trump's name is in the Epstein files umpteen thousands of times, it's because every wackadoo that decided that they didn't like Donald Trump was able to call in, offer a tip, and boop, that created an Epstein file. That created his name one more time appearing in the Epstein files. But Donald Trump's not the only one. I mean, he's not the only person. And one of the biggest reasons why he was against releasing everything, in particular the unverified stuff, was because there were people who he knew whose names were mentioned in there. Well, like, hey, I bought a plane from Jeffrey Epstein. Well, that doesn't mean that you were ever on Epstein's island. That just meant you bought a plane from Jeffrey Epstein, right? Maybe you went to a business lunch or a business dinner and Jeffrey Epstein was there. Boop, your name wound up in the Epstein files. That's all it really took, was for your name to be somewhere, somehow, directly or indirectly associated with someone or anything that Jeffrey Epstein was involved in. And that's why we normally don't release information that goes to grand juries, right? Because they throw the kitchen sink at it, right? And you don't know, most of it's not verified. There's no cross-examination in a grand jury investigation. When you have a witness, there's no grand jury. In other words, they're going to have anybody on there that can provide anything that's going to encourage anybody on that grand jury to indict. But you can't convince people of this stuff. Anyway, so anyway, two things are very, very important to note here. Number one, this was not, let me say it again, this was not a left-wing attack on Trump and conservatives and Republicans. This was a right-wing attack. These were supposed conservatives, or as we call them, horseshoe conservative, or the horseshoe right, because they're not conservatives at all. These are people, once again, and these are people who, quite frankly, I think in many cases we don't want to be associated with, because in some cases they are nuts. In some cases because they are anti-Semitic. In some cases because they are just flat out racists. And they refuse to. In some cases, they're people who are just more isolationist, right? Maybe they're not part of the racist group. They're not part of the wackadoo group. They're not anti-Semitic, but they tend to be more isolationist. They're more populist than they are conservative. And this is why when I say I support a lot of the things that are quote unquote MAGA, but I don't know if I necessarily qualify as MAGA, because I'm not isolationist. I'm not. No, I don't believe we need to be involved in every country. I don't believe we need to be involved in every battle or fight that is out there. But I also believe that as the world's preeminent superpower, we do have some responsibility in the world, right? The reason why, for example, we've had free trade throughout the world, the reason why is because ships have been able to travel the seas pretty much unfettered. And they've been able to do that because of the United States, because of the strength and our dominance of the seas for so many decades. Well, we're not as dominant in the seas anymore. We don't have as many ships out there anymore. We're not as active and engaged in stuff like that anymore. And that's the reason why you see, for example, things like the Strait of Hormuz cause so many problems, because we are not that dominant superpower in that area anymore. And, that's something that needs to be corrected. In any case, this is a very, very serious thing, and I just want some of my friends, for those of you out there who are like me, are conservative, also like me are concerned about the rhetoric. We need to call our folks out when we are guilty of it, right? I know the left needs to call their folks out. They never will. I'm sorry, but no, I take that back. Some of them will, right? You have the Bill Maher's, they're doing it. The Matt Taibbi's, they're doing it. The John Daly has done it at times, right? Joe Rogan, because I don't care what y'all say. Joe Rogan is on the left. He is a lefty. He calls his folks out. But in the end, it's going to take, and that's what's funny though is that as soon as someone on the left calls the left out, they accuse them of being on the right. Right? They calls them tools of conservatism, right? Barry Weiss, great example. Great example. The person who's now running CBS News, she comes out and says, look, we actually need to have fair and balanced reporting. And despite the fact that she's been a lifelong liberal, they still accuse her of being a conservative tool. Once again, they don't want fair time. They don't want equal access. They want to shut down conservative voices, right? They don't want the truth and nothing but the truth. They want their story told, and that's all they are really interested in. Anyway, but y'all know, I want the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God. All right, next story. 15 people have been charged with impeding federal agents during the Minnesota immigration crackdown. That's right. This is important to understand, and this is what I really was kind of hoping you guys would get and understand. So, one of the things that was going on when people were out there doing all the things, when they were attacking ICE agents, when they were using their vehicles to block agents and not allowing them to go to do their jobs, specifically keeping them from doing their jobs. Number one, those people, those ICE agents are federal law enforcement agents. Number two, they were sent there with a specific purpose to enforce federal law, federal immigration law in this case, but to enforce federal law. And they were impeded, right? The people who were blocking them with their cars, the people who were blocking them in the middle of the streets, the people who were attacking them, the people who were throwing frozen water bottles at them, the people who were throwing rocks at them, they were not only assaulting federal officers, they were impeding them in the performance of their duty, right? Which is a federal crime. And now it appears that they have now official charges have been filed. It says here, once again being reported by NBC News, DOJ charges 15 people with what it says impeded agents during Minnesota immigration crackdown. I love that, how it says, not that they actually did it, because guess what? Yeah, they actually did. Let me read the article here a little bit. It says 15 protesters in Minnesota face a series of charges, including conspiracy to impede or injure federal officers, assault on a federal officer, and destruction of government property, the Departments of Justice and Homeland Security announced today. The charges stem from demonstrations earlier this year against the Trump administration's mass immigration enforcement operation in Minneapolis and the surrounding area. The protesters are accused of using multiple tactics to disrupt federal immigration enforcement, including using vehicles and blocks of ICE to block or slow down agents' vehicles outside of a federal detention center, and using homemade shields made of plastic, wood, and metal to physically resist the efforts of law enforcement, Minnesota U.S. Attorney Daniel Rosen said at a news conference, quote, "They all joined in agreement a conspiracy to interfere with lawful immigration enforcement operations. The conspiracy was not to interfere by their voice, but to do so by force. That is a crime, and it will not be tolerated by the United States," Rosen said. 12 of those charged were arrested during an operation Tuesday morning. One was in custody and 2 remain at large, he said. Rosen declined to say whether any officers were injured during the demonstrations, which took place January 23rd through March 1st. And one of the things that I want to point out is if you assault an officer, that them being injured is not a requirement for you to be charged with assault, right? It's not a requirement. If you assault an officer, you can be charged with assaulting an officer. You still can be charged with impeding or obstructing a federal officer in the performance of their duties. When you use your vehicle, when you use blocks of ice, when you throw blocks of ice or rocks at law enforcement. Now, once again, these are just the people that they have actual evidence for. And one of the reasons why it took so long is because they have to go through all of the video evidence, all of the body cams, all of the phone evidence in order to look and see, and so that they have definitive proof of who was doing what, right? Because when you have a mob out there, you know, was it that guy or was it the guy next to him, right? Was it the guy behind him or the guy in front of him? When you're in the midst of it, it's really hard to tell. But when you have the benefit of being able to pull up body cams, something which liberals push, so way to go, left wing. We'll give you that. We'll give it to you on that one. Body cams really helped. When you're able to subpoena and get people's phone records and download video that people shot on their phones, and that, you know, those of you who are out there who are activists, who are out there with your phones and were filming all this stuff, there you go. You guys don't even know. You were witnesses against yourselves, against your fellow conspirators, shall we say. But the reason why, the reason why that's only 15, and the reason why it took so long, because I'm sure they wanted to make sure they had all the evidence that they needed in order to make these convictions stick. So this is something that I'm very, very glad to see. I'm hoping that they're doing this in other areas. I'm hoping that this is happening in New Jersey, where they are doing some of the same exact stuff. I'm hoping this happened I wish this would have happened. I don't know if it happened in LA, where once again, they were engaging in some of the same exact sorts of behaviors. But folks, you have to come to understand. And by the way, the other thing that needs to happen is those people who are law enforcement, who are not just law enforcement, but who are elected officials who went out and said these are not law enforcement agents, right? I think they need to be brought up on charges too, because they are the ones who inspired these folks. They're the ones who were part of the conspiracy, who came out and said they're not law enforcement. They are not real law enforcement. They are breaking the law. And by the way, they weren't breaking the law. They were not breaking the law whatsoever. I think that they need to be brought up on charges too. At the very least, have charges filed against them. I get it. With the people that love them, it will make them seem like they are martyrs. But when they eventually get convicted, right? And well, it'd be nice if they could get convicted. Lord knows, depends on what kind of judge they get. But someone needs to come and understand that you can't have people do that, because they are putting these agents in danger. They really are. The reason why the agents are wearing masks is because they're being doxxed. Their family's being doxxed. They're being threatened and their family's being threatened. And nobody on the left seems to care about any of that, right? They don't comment at all. They don't say, well, that shouldn't happen. They don't discourage that. They just were like, well, they shouldn't wear masks. Well, there's no law preventing them from doing that or eliminating them from doing that. And any local laws that are passed that says that they're not allowed to do that, well, let's just say federal immunity will supersede that. If they are engaged in and actually practicing and engaging in federal law enforcement, yeah, you're not going to be able to do anything with that. So guys like Tom Steyer, who said he was going to arrest these folks, sorry, dude. Well, you're not going to get to do it anyway, because you spent $210 million, and you're not even going to get a whiff of the governor's mansion in California. But anyway, all that having been said, I'm glad they are being charged. I'm hoping that more people eventually get charged. I want to see everybody who was involved in all of that. I want to see them held accountable. They need to be. We need to ensure that they are held accountable. All right, moving right along. Let's see. Court finds gun possession alone is not enough for a police stop. Now, this is an important thing. Now, this is not a new precedent. Several years back in Pennsylvania, in a Pennsylvania court, they found kind of the same exact thing. But I wanted to just use this as an opportunity to kind of talk a little bit about this, to kind of bear this out a little bit. There we go. I'm sorry, I'm trying to find the article here. So this is a piece from over at AmmoLand, and it's written by the editor, Duncan Johnson. It says here, Maryland court finds gun possession alone not enough for a police stop. In Stephen v. Hicks, State of Maryland, the Appellate Court of Maryland delivered a post-Bruin warning to police and prosecutors that mere sight of a gun is not a blank check to stop, handcuff, disarm, and search a citizen. Appellate Court of Maryland, sitting en banc, reversed the conviction of Stephen Hicks after ruling that Baltimore police violated his constitutional rights when they stopped and searched him based on the alleged sight of a handgun printing through his shirt. The Citizens Committee for the Right to Keep and Bear Arms is applauding the ruling as another post-Bruin sign that courts are starting to understand a basic point. Exercising constitutional right is not suspicious behavior. CCRKBA Chairman Alan Gottlieb called the Hicks ruling, quote, a wake-up call, end quote, for Maryland police, and said officers can no longer treat constitutional right like a regulated privilege. On January 5th, 2023, Baltimore City Police were in the area of St. Charles and Belvedere for an investigation unrelated to Hicks. Detective Mitchell Ramsey, a member of the department's gun violence unit, was riding in an unmarked vehicle when he saw a group of people congregating. Hicks began walking away as the vehicle approached. Hicks was wearing a satchel across the front of his body. According to the court opinion, Detective Ramsey said he saw the rear handle of a handgun in Hicks's waistband and could see the angular outline of the firearm physically printing through Hicks's shirt. Ramsey got out, activated his body-worn camera, and ordered Hicks to put his hands up. Hicks asked why, and immediately he said he had a license. Ramsey told him he was being stopped because a firearm was printing in his waistband. Hicks was handcuffed. He repeated that he had a permit and asked if he could retrieve it. Hicks was not a prohibited person in this case. The permit later produced had an expiration date of February 28, 2026, and no restrictions. The state stipulated that the permit was recovered that day. Police removed the holstered handgun from Hicks's waistband. Police then continued searching. A second firearm was found in Hicks's satchel, and suspected cocaine was recovered from his pants pocket. Hicks was charged with multiple firearm drug offenses. After the trial, the court denied his suspension motion. He entered a conditional guilty plea to possession of a firearm with a nexus to drug trafficking and received a 5-year sentence without parole. The appellate court reversed. Now, here's the thing, folks. And now, number one, if you are committing a crime and you are in possession of a firearm while committing a crime, I'm going to guess, and I'm once again not being a lawyer, that whether or not you are legally allowed to possess a firearm, if you're carrying a firearm during the commission of a felony, if there's any sort of enhancements or anything like that, I'm guessing you're still going to be subject to that. Once again, not an attorney, did not sleep at a Holiday Inn Express last night. But here's the real important part of this, is that law enforcement is often taught that anyone who does not have a badge but is in possession of a firearm is a bad guy. Right? That's largely how they are trained. And what this says is that possession of a firearm does not necessarily mean that you are in violation of the law. In other words, they can't start treating you as guilty until proven innocent. They can't say you have to produce a permit. They can't treat you like you have to produce a permit. They can arrest you, they can detain you, and you then have to produce a permit before, you're supposed to be, before you're hunky-dory and you're okay, right? That's an important distinction, especially if, once again, in this particular case, it wasn't like he was revealed. He was imprinting, meaning you could see the firearm through his clothing. So it wasn't like he was brandishing a firearm. He was carrying it concealed. He had a permit, and once again, they gave the dates in the piece. I don't know if, where that fell in the, probably you go back and watch the tape and you find out whether or not the permit was still legal. Maybe it had expired. He may have still been within the, like a lot of times there's a grace period window, of like 30 to 60 to 90 days where it's still active even though it's expired. But in the end, you can't just treat someone like they are guilty because you believe they have a firearm, right? They're not now a criminal until they prove that they're not. That doesn't apply. And this is an important distinction. This is a very important distinction. I think you're going to start to see, especially post-Bruin, you're going to start to see this happen more and more. Now, what that's going to require is going to be some retraining of law enforcement, right? They're going to have to learn, no, you can't just jump on somebody because you see or you believe they have a gun on them, right? If they are not reaching for it, if they are not brandishing it, if they are not pointing it at you, then you don't get to just act a fool. And does that make law enforcement's job harder? Yes. Because are criminals going to carry guns? Yes. And guess what? They always have. They always have, and they always will, with or without a permit. So this doesn't protect you. I mean, this doesn't hurt them when it comes to dealing with those guys anyway. What it does mean, though, is you can't treat law-abiding citizens like criminals. Right? You better learn to distinguish between the two. Learn to distinguish betwixt and between the two. Now, do we have a responsibility as gun owners, as responsible gun owners, to try and not have our firearm imprinting, to try and not have it showing, to try and keep it appropriately concealed? Yes. Do we have a responsibility that when law enforcement does confront us, to not act a fool over being? Yes, we do. We want to act a fool, get in court, go to court, right? They have violated your rights. Don't act out on it then. Go to court, which is 90% of the time what we do. Go to court, and then we handle it there, where it's supposed to be handled, where the conversation should be had. Anyway, that's just my perspective. Anyway, I think it's the very, very interesting thing. I want to see more of these sorts of decisions. But once again, for decisions like this to happen, it means that, unfortunately, cops got to do bad things, right? A municipality has to do bad things because you can't just, go to the court and say, hey, we'd like to get your opinion on this. Nope, there's actually got to be a case that has to deal with it. So while I don't want to see people's rights trampled on, this was a good decision. All right, that now brings us to our final story of the day. Talk about, not being treated like, and not being assumed that you are a criminal. Well, there are accusations. And we've talked a lot about lawfare during the last few years, during the Trump administration and during the Biden administration. We've talked a lot about lawfare, in particular how the left has used the alphabet agencies to go against conservatives, to go against Republicans, not just Trump, but people who are adjacent to Trump. We've talked about how for the first time ever, someone was charged with, taken to court, arrested for contempt of Congress, and had to do jail time, where people's political allies of someone who was disfavored of the White House were taken to court. We've talked about how they've spied on the president's campaign, how they've spied on Republican senators, how they have gone after and investigated conservative organizations, gone after their tax-exempt status, how they have gone and hunted down pro-life activists for praying outside of abortion clinics, right? Sent tactical teams to their homes to arrest them in order to put them in jail, right? The left has done all of this. Well, now you have California's governor, Gavin Newsom, who is claiming that, he's being unfairly treated. He's being unfairly treated by the Trump administration, and that he is being investigated. And I'm going to play a little bit of his the video that he released where he's talking about how he is being investigated and how lawfare is being used against him by the Trump administration.
In recent days, federal agents have knocked on the doors of family, friends, and former employees. Not because they found a crime, because they're simply trying to find one. They're demanding records. They're abusing the grand jury process, digging through years and years of random documents. Donald Trump isn't just coming after me because of my mean tweets. He's coming after me because I'm considering running for president, because he hates that I've consistently called him out over and over again for his lies and deceit. Donald Trump is simply the most corrupt president in American history. He's turned the levers of government into his own personal power ministries to reward cronies and to try to jail his opponents. His personal attorney.
So there you go. So those are the accusations. Now, some of you might say, well, that's kind of what it looks like. Well, yes, It does, one would think, except that, well, there actually is a reason for kind of looking into and investigating him. And Joel Fox, was it Joel Fox? I'm sorry, no, Joel Pollack. I'm talking Joel Fox. Joel Pollack over at the California Post talks about one of the things, we're talking just one of the reasons why he might be under investigation.
Our next guest wrote this op-ed, Gavin Newsom and the curious California world of behested payments. California opinion editor Joel Pollack joins us now. Joel, we only have about 45 seconds. I'm sorry because we got jammed up with breaking news, but tell us what this investigation is really about.
Well, we don't know all the details, but there's certainly enough out there for anyone to be suspicious, because these behested payments are payments that politicians ask donors to give to nonprofits or charities. And Gavin Newsom happened to ask donors to give millions of dollars to a nonprofit that happens to be run by his wife. And that raises all kinds of questions about conflict of interest, as well as the fact that some of the donors had business pending before the state. So there's certainly reason enough already in the public domain for there to be investigations.
We should mention, by the way, that a second probe, I believe it was of his chief of staff, actually started under the Biden administration, right? So there is a bipartisan element of this that he doesn't want to get into.
Right. His chief of staff is suspected of taking money out of Javier Becerra's campaign account and using it for various other purposes, as well as defrauding the PPP during COVID. And Becerra says he didn't do anything wrong, but the purpose of taking this money was to fund his chief of staff in Washington. So that could also have implications for his gubernatorial campaign.
Incredible state. Your state of California, my state of New York as well. Joel Pollack, great stuff. Thank you very much for staying on it. I appreciate it.
All right. So, and by the way, this is just literally one scandal. You've also got a number of no bid contracts during COVID that had taken place that where money actually went to his friends. You've got the instances where there's someone purchased, or an LLC purchased a home for the governor and his wife to live in. Now this LLC purchased this home cash. If he had financed it for himself, it would have taken an income somewhere around $2 million, which we know he doesn't currently have, or he shouldn't currently have as governor. Anyway, all that having been said, we know that's not what he makes as governor. All that having been said, there's a lot of things to investigate here. There's the billions of dollars that disappeared in unemployment claims that were backed by federal unemployment dollars. There's the $24 billion in homeless aid that we have no idea where that money went, where that money disappeared to, because all it really seemed to do was buy us more homeless people. There's tons of reasons to investigate Gavin Newsom. And the problem is that in an era, in a place where you have one-party government, and the people who have to approve of the things you do are your friends, it increases the likelihood that you're going to do some hinky stuff because your friends aren't going to call you on it. And it's one of the problems with, once again, having a one-party state. But I'm not saying that he's done anything illegal. I'm saying that there's a lot of reasons to be investigated. And for him to act like there's absolutely no there, well, I mean, I won't even get into the millions of dollars that have gone to his wife's nonprofit from state schools and from the state of California, actually funding these movies that are encouraging, lifestyles to which many public school parents would not approve of. In any case, all that having been said, there's a lot of hinky stuff going on, and I think that this is going to be some stuff that, worst case scenario, is going to impact his run for presidency. And by the way, if this was all just about trying to get at him and trying to make him look bad, then the Department of Justice would have released this information. They would have talked about the fact that they were investigating him. Gavin Newsom is the one who released this information. He's the one who took it public. So the only person making Gavin Newsom look bad right now is Gavin Newsom. The only person who is besmirching his reputation is himself. Now, he's put out FOIA requests. He's asked for whatever, and he wants to know anything that they're investigating him for. Now, once that information is made public, then anybody's going to have access to it, right? Meaning, there's no reason for the Department of Justice to not then, or the Trump administration to not then put out, yeah, these are the foundations of what we're looking for. These are the things that are being investigated when it comes to him. And all it's gonna do is further make him look bad. One of the worst things he could have done was actually come out public with this stuff, to be honest. It's one of the worst things he could have done, because he's trying to liken it to what was done. He's trying, well, they claimed that we did this to Donald Trump. Well, yeah, because y'all did. But the worst part about it is that if they find anything, see, that's what's going to happen. It's if there's any there, they in trouble. Anyway. All right, folks, that now brings us to our parting shots. Parting shots are brought to you by Hog Holsters. Just go to hogholsters.com, use the discount code The Rundown, all caps, no spaces, one word, and get your hog holster today. In honor of James Tallarico, who's running for, is it James? Anyway, for Mr. Tallarico, who's running for Senate in Texas. He seems to have a very, very different perspective of the Bible and what the Bible says about various different things. And I thought, I'm just like, anybody who believes anything that this guy says when it comes to Scripture, well, they're idiots. But I have to say, after watching this little montage of this video from over at the Babylon Bee, I could see where if anyone had heard of woke Jesus, well, they might have actually fallen for it. And this was kind of their take on it. By the way, Babylon Bee, fake news that you can trust.
If anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn it off with the other also. Unless they're a Republican. Then you can feel free to punch them in the face. Let the children come unto me, and do not hinder them, unless they might be born into poverty, or they might be an inconvenience to your party lifestyle. In that case, feel free to murder them in the womb. Haven't you read that in the beginning, God created them male and female, and genderqueer, femboy, trans man, trans woman, two-spirit? You have heard that it was said, hate your enemies. But I say to you, this is correct. And here's a handy little chart to help you understand who your enemy is, based on Marxist intersectionality theory.
As the Lord was setting out on a journey, a certain young man approached him.
Oh, my Lord.
Anyway, that's just part of the video that's over at the Babylon Bee. Folks, if you don't subscribe to Babylon Bee, you need to. I mean, their headlines and their stuff is free, and they have some stuff for paid. But I'll tell you, I subscribe to them largely because, one, they are hilarious. And two, I like to see things that I agree with. I like to see them reinforced. And if we want them to keep producing this quality content and keep making us laugh, then we need to make sure to support them. So if you're not a subscriber over at the Babylon Bee, you need to be. So, and they are not a sponsor of the show. We use a lot of their stuff. They're not a sponsor of the show, but once again, want to make sure to give them a shout out. Also want to encourage you, or a couple of other ones here from the Babylon Bee. Once again, fake news that you can trust. Democrats vow to keep fighting until nobody in America can be successful, because we can't have people being trillionaires here in the United States. And then finally, I don't know if you've heard the story about what's been going on with Major League Baseball, where a couple of players who they were forced to wear, if they wanted to play, they were forced during a pride event with their team. They were forced to wear the rainbow caps, and so they wrote biblical scriptures in their hat. Well, Major League Baseball rebrands to MLBTQ+, because, well, these guys also are getting fined. Reports are they're likely to be fined for what they did because it doesn't meet MLB standards. That's right. Deciding that you actually want to exercise your faith as opposed to promoting something that is against your faith, well, MLB, Major League Baseball, which Mike would say Major League Baseball would never do that. No, sorry, Major League Baseball has done it. They have gone full woke. All right, folks, that brings us to the end of our program. But before we go, we're going to have one more quick shout out to our sponsors. We're going to start with the folks at Hitman Industries, rifle and pistol caliber barrels available for you to purchase at any length at hitmanindustries.net. We've got the California Republican Assembly, the conscience of the Republican Party. Visit them at cragop.org. We've got the best in concealed carry tactical holsters available on the market at hawgholsters.com. That's HAWG holsters.com, helping Americans wear guns. And then finally, the place where you can find all things tactical except the gun, and that would be at uscombatgear.com. And that is going to be it for today's program. We very much appreciate you tuning in. We appreciate you liking and sharing the program and encouraging your friends to do the same. I'll be back tomorrow on Hump Day. Till then, y'all have fun. Stay safe. We'll see you mañana.